Hello and welcome to Simon Says Artwork. Okay, so it's October the 1st and I've got an injury. I think I've sprained a ligament. It was a stupid injury. I'll tell you how it happened. So embarrassing. I was round at a friend's house, an artist that I'm collaborating with, and I'd taken my shoes off because it was raining outside. We'd spent some time working on some application that we're filling out at the moment. And then as I was leaving, I was putting my shoes back on. And you know, like how there's a loop at the back of your shoes? I had my index finger in there, and it slipped. And I don't know what happened, but it just, I don't know, I felt this, like electric shock kind of biting pain in my tendons, in my hand there. And that's it. I've got a sprained. I mean, driving home was so painful. But thankfully, because I'm in the UK, we sit on the right hand side of the car. So I was shifting gear with the left hand. So it was just kind of like holding the steering wheel like that, because these fingers are fine. It's just these two really painful. So anyway, the reason why I tell you that is because I'm going to be doing Inktober sketches all this month, every day with my left hand. And I'm not ambidextrous. I can't draw with both hands. I am right-handed. So this is Inktober number 1. Let's get started. So here we are, Inktober number 1, and I'm starting with a disadvantage, but there we are. I thought if I start with a 0.5 nib and just start to do some random scribbly kind of shapes and try to learn hatching with my left hand, it was immediately quite tricky, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try and vary up the marks that I make and just experimenting here to see what I can draw and how it looks afterwards. And it was tricky. I found it much easier to do random lines than to do anything specific. For example, that outline around the page wasn't me trying to be loose and messy. I was actually trying to drag a line across the page fairly straight. And even if I did it with my right hand, it wouldn't be perfectly straight, but it certainly wouldn't be as wonky as that. So it was really just trying to gauge how much this, learning to draw with my left hand would disadvantage me. So I get started on this kind of weird kind of diagonal mixture, and I quite like it. I thought this is what I appreciate about drawing anyway. Maybe clean lines don't really matter, and just try to approach it with the idea of I like darker sections in certain places. I like intersecting lines of different diagonals and shapes and different kind of almost design which looks man-made interspersed with something which looks organic and natural. Now bits are going out of focus here. I apologise for that. I think it's because the camera's picking up my hand more than the page, but there, when it goes sharper, you can see that some of these little marks in between are actually quite nice when it comes to the God, look at how I'm holding the pen. You can see how different it is holding it with my left hand. It just looks so much stranger to me than how I hold it with my right hand. Anyway, I tried to do circles at the top and they turned out to be weird lumpy blobs, which was just, it's just what happens, and who knows if that will improve or if I'll just try something completely different with my left hand over time. At this point I was just thinking, how can I fill the space and not hesitate too much, because I have nothing planned at all and I just want to kind of doodle in the space, but it's a real effort to try and draw with this hand, and the temptation to swap hands to go to my right hand was overwhelming. But I did manage to not do that. But there was several times when I thought about it. I thought, God, I can't do this because my hand is so injured at the moment that it's just very painful. And this was the day that I injured my hand as well. So after doing this drawing, I go to bed and I wake up in the morning hours earlier than my alarm because it feels like my hand is being stabbed. It was just so painful. But my fingers haven't swollen up, so I don't know what exactly has happened, but I think it's a sprained ligaments in my index and middle finger. So there we are. I'll just let that heal and hope for the best. This is where I start doing these vine shapes which I think are quite interesting coming out of this dish. And I wasn't sure what that would lead to, or what I was going to build from the bottom of that. So I started to do something which I thought could be a pole, and then because I couldn't draw straight lines for the pole, I end up doing some horizontal cut lines across that to try and section it to cover up the scribbles. It's really tricky to try and hide marks that you make which you're not happy with, and all of these lines were squiggly and uneven, and I think it's possibly because I'm doing something which is quite tricky when it comes to having a lack of dexterity, and that's overlapping shapes, and it is tricky. And then trying to do poles and structures of things which look like they could be parts of antennae or something like that, and that's, again, it's something which takes a lot of strength and control, which I didn't have access to with my left hand. What I did have access to was the ability to do little scratchy marks, which I used to make this more organic looking, almost rock-like shape here, which is behind the vines. Shading in was difficult, doing things in black. Now this was the most tricky part here. Trying to do this darker line on the edge of the vines was really difficult because it was hard to have the control of following where I'd already drawn. But who knows, it could be something which I'm building on. This is just number one. And then making random shapes like this was quite interesting and nice, and I don't know, part of me thought maybe I should just commit to doing these types of shapes instead of more figurative looking things like the vines, or like these kind of dish shapes. And like on the top right hand corner, how this almost tree trunk looking thing is going into what looks like some kind of a vice grip or something which looks like a metallic grip going around it. Those things are things which I usually draw. That was one of the points when I wanted to draw my right hand. I don't know if you saw, I put the pen down and was thinking, oh, should I swap? Use my right hand, but I didn't. But yeah, that's one of the things that I usually draw with my right hand. So with my left, I was just kind of hostage to my own habits, really. Just like with this shape cutting across here, I know that I wanted some kind of compositional adjustment. So I wanted something to cut across in an arcing shape, going from higher right to lower left, and that's just because of the diagonal shapes I have going all the way across this drawing. I do that because I like these types of pictures where things cross over each other and overlap, and it's quite chaotic, but I thought if I leave little bits of space here and there, it could be a breathing space for your eyes. I know that's a weird expression, but if you see what I mean, it's your eyes aren't going all over the place, darting around trying to figure out what's what. It's more, there are spaces where you don't have to process so many little marks and textures, where I try to leave it just blank, and then underneath and around that I add the textures and details. That's the concept that I tried to use here anyway. So this is me now trying to create this other diagonal compositional shape to go parallel with that first one, and then another one in the very bottom right hand corner. That way I've just got some level of consistency with those, and I can build around that with detail behind it. And because I quite like hatching, I thought maybe if I just try to do a bit of hatching with my left hand and see how that goes. And it was really interesting, really strange and difficult. It was like starting from scratch again. But I might do a page of hatching at some point. I'm sure I will, with my left hand, to see what happens and what I can achieve with that. And so far with this, I did a combination of these little almost scars in the rocks behind, and then a mixture of that and hatching, because I thought those are quite nice background textures that will add quite a bit to the drawing. And I like this hatching here on the left hand side because it's kind of like a layered, curved, contoured hatching, and it goes a little bit over the edge there, and that's just my lack of control, but who's to say what's in front of what? And that's how it turned out. I did miss the last part. I think I pressed pause on the camera for a minute when I was resting my hand, but that's what it looks like, and I quite like it. I think that's quite an interesting looking image. And that is, Inktober number 1. So one down. What is there, 31 days this month? 1 down, 30 more to go. Okay, that is the drawing done. Now, I think for a left-handed drawing, I quite like it. I think it turned out kind of cool. It's very much a doodle drawing. I don't know, I might end up doing a lot of those, but who knows, I might vary it up as well and see what else I can achieve. But for Inktober #1, I'm quite happy with how it went. It was very tricky. The most difficult part for me was this bit here where it looks like vines coming out of this bowl or this dish thing here. Because I was doing a heavier line on one side of them, because I had to go back over that line to make it darker, I don't have the kind of dexterity with this wrist with my left, and it's more jagged little movements like that. It really doesn't have any flow to it. So I was struggling to score across that line without cutting into the vine shape that I'd drawn. There were several parts like that where I just thought, just ignore it, just think of Peter Draws and try to stick to the fun aspect instead of trying to be too specific or directed. I feel like Peter Draws has this flow state that he gets into, and he just draws and enjoys the interaction between one part of a doodle and another. And I'm going to try and tap into that a lot. And who knows, I might end up like Karl Kopinski, which, if you don't know who that is, he's ambidextrous. So's Andy Soto as well. So yeah, check her out as well. They're both amazing. And they're both ambidextrous. So they can both draw with both hands at the same time. And I might do that as some kind of, I don't know, exhibition piece. So everyone who watches the videos, thank you so much. And everyone who comments, you know who you are, Rick Smith. And others, but especially Rick Smith. Thank you so much for your comments, because it means the world to me. So yeah, as I say at the end of every video, if you did enjoy it, then please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, and out of the 3 options, I recommend that you press all, because it's just a little red dot on the subscription tab. It's not something which rings and sends you messages and bothers you that way. I've done it with every channel I've subscribed to. I've pressed the all on the notification bell, and it's not a big deal. But either way, whether you do that or not, I appreciate you watching the videos. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.